and then we'll
No,
try,
it takes-
and then we'll try it again with Incredible Hulk.
It takes longer than that.
Well, I expect 2 days.
Hello everyone, welcome to Project Potter again. My name is Kyle, as always your host. I'm joined here by some special guests here, my friend Victor, my friend Garrett. We just watched Iron Man, and we are going to review it and kind of start this MCU review going off here. So just a couple things here. We're going to kind of review the movie, and we are going to kind of go over the big points here, the unsung heroes, maybe some scores at the end here. We don't really know how this is going to go, so this may be way different than what we do in 4 or 5 episodes, but for now, we're going to do Iron Man review. Alright, so if you guys want to join me, we're just going to, I guess we'll recap the big moments here, and just the overall story. This movie came out in 2008, so if you haven't seen Iron Man, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, so go watch that movie. And it's 2020 when we're recording this, so it's now 12 years old, but I mean, personally speaking, I think this movie holds up. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree.
Phenomenal 12 years later.
I definitely agree with that.
It's, yeah, I would say just watching this movie again, I've seen this movie a few times now, but definitely holds up. Doesn't really feel dated that much, other than the flip phones that Tony uses in this movie. And I think it holds up pretty good, so yeah, we'll just kind of get into it. So for those of you who don't know, Tony Stark is kind of the lead protagonist and the main character, kind of in the MCU movie, as we'll see, and he gets captured by, do they say where this movie takes place? Is
Somewhere in the Middle East.
The Middle East.
We'll say Afghanistan. I think it was Afghanistan.
Hopefully that's not racist, everything that's going on now, but yeah, we'll say Middle East. I think that's kind of what it's depicted as. This movie came out in 2008, so kind of the
Right in the wartime.
right in the height of everything that was going on, with kind of I think the end of Bush's administration,
Yep.
and then Obama's administration, the war in Iraq. So I think it's very relevant to the times. And yeah, so Tony Stark, he's in a Humvee to start this movie. He's with a few soldiers, cracks a couple jokes. He's got scotch. Is it scotch?
Most likely. Probably very expensive
Most likely
scotch.
Yeah.
Taking
Yeah.
photographs.
Because I think he's a billionaire at this point, is he not?
Oh, yeah. He's a celebrity.
Yeah, he's
For sure.
He's as we find out throughout the movie, his dad Howard Stark is kind of a big wig in the invention scene, and kind of he knows how to make shit, basically.
The Merchant of Death, as they call
The
him.
Merchant of Death. I think they call Tony that.
Yeah, it was Tony.
Yeah, and so he kind of adapts that nickname, and so he's rolling with some Humvees. They run over like IED,
Yep.
independent explosive device.
Was in the military, I'm not sure.
Heard that term before, but either way, the Humvee in front of them blows up and kind of throws this movie into a loop here. Tony is kind of shocked here. There's a missile that goes down there, and he actually sees that it's Stark Industries that is there, and that kind of shocks him. Then we actually get a flashback to Vegas, Vegas baby, for I think it's 36 hours early.
Yeah, 36 hours
36
before.
hours.
Yeah. Day and a half.
It's supposed to be accepted.
Which in Vegas is like fucking 10 days, so. Yeah, so they go back to Vegas, there's an award for Tony. He doesn't show up at the award show, if I remember correctly. It's Obadiah that needs to take over.
Yeah.
So Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges, I think we all agree does a great job, regardless of kind of how we feel about
He's an asshole in the movie, but phenomenal.
He does a good job of playing the asshole, I
Yeah.
think. So he shows up, he takes the award for Tony, says, I'm not Tony. We find out Tony's actually at like the
Craps table.
craps table.
Rolling on dice.
Yep. Hanging out with like hookers or attractive women that they got for this movie, and they blow on it, and he throws it. And he's there with Sergeant James Rhodes, played by Terrence Howard. Colonel James Rhodes.
Yeah.
Colonel James Rhodes. He's there, and he's kind of trying to keep him under wraps, but it's Vegas baby, and everything's kind of going crazy there. So he's kind of letting loose. He doesn't have to go to the award ceremony. We'll kind of cut ahead here. Tony eventually gets captured by the Middle Eastern
Some terrorist group.
Yeah.
terrorist group. We might be leaping way ahead here, but trying not to spend too much time on the recap. Tony gets captured. Basically, he's held. I don't know.
He's
as a
held
slave,
hostage. Yeah.
He's held hostage. So they tell him, the group that holds him hostage ends up saving his life. They put an arc reactor in his chest and say, "This is what's keeping the shrapnel from reaching your heart." And they basically tell him, we need to build the
Jericho
Jericho missile. And we kind of skipped over this, but he does have a demonstration here, the iconic Tony Stark scene where he puts his hands up and he talks about the Jericho missile, where it's got all these little missiles going off there.
Blows up an entire mountain.
He says something like, the best weapon is the one you want to fire once, and then the enemies won't come out of their cave. I don't know if you guys want to hit on that at all.
The enemies did come out of their cave, and they got him.
They definitely came out of their cave, and that Jericho missile didn't do the job because Tony gets captured after that presentation. But Tony gets captured. They tell him, "Hey, we need you to build this Jericho this Jericho weapon." Or, I don't know if they threaten his life, but they say, "This is what's keeping you alive," essentially.
Basically, just hooked up to a car battery at this point. So at any point, they can probably just end him.
Yep, they do say, and there's a good bit where Tony's walking around with a car battery in his hand for a while. That's actually keeping him alive at this point. But he's basically forced to build this weapon, or they're going to kill him, or end the car battery, like Garrett said here. So Tony starts building the kind of the weapon, but then he kind of off tracks and starts building the suit, or what we know as the first Iron Man suit here. And eventually, the group actually knows that, hey, they're taking a look there. There's like one dude on a camera, like a webcam, and he says, we kind of noticed you're not building the weapons. It looks like you're building a suit, because there's like a scene where he's like kicking up.
Like the prototype on his knee.
Yep, he's got a prototype on his knee, so he's kind of building a suit there under secret. But they basically say like, "Yo, you shouldn't be building the suit. You should be building our weapons there." Tony's like, "Yo, don't worry about it. I got it. Like I'm gonna build it." There's a doctor there with him. He's building it, and eventually we get to a scene there where he actually builds a prototype suit, and he was building this all along to kind of escape, and he ends up like fucking all of them up, like out of the cave.
Yeah.
So he's trying to escape with this. There's a great scene where he flies up, crashes into the ground, which as we said when we were watching it, he would definitely die from this.
Little unrealistic.
Yeah.
Anything goes in the movies.
Yeah, it's the Marvel Universe. We kind of know that a normal human would die hitting the ground, but Tony is fine because he's Iron Man, so he's just a little dinged up.
Shakes it off.
Yep, shakes it up. Shakes it off.
Yeah, for me, the craziest part of this intro is, of all the Marvel superheroes that you're going to see throughout this whole thing, this is the most traumatic experience to create a superhero who becomes so iconic. I mean, he never planned to be Iron Man. He was, as we'll see the quote, he's philanthropist, billionaire, playboy, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. He never planned to be a superhero.
Right.
And he got kidnapped and captured and was forced to create something to save his own life. And he ends up being, down the road, the greatest, or one of the greatest superheroes of all time through traumatic experience. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't think they explicitly state this, but I think at the beginning of the movie, Tony is there for like a PR campaign, basically.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
He's hanging out with the soldiers not because he's gonna enact in the war, but because he's just kind of trying to make like an appearance. Like Vic said, well, there's an eventual quote. I forget which movie it's in, but yeah, I think is it Avengers maybe?
It's definitely one of them.
Where they say like, take the suit off. I think it's Cap. He says like, take the suit off.
What are you without the suit? Yeah.
He goes, flinch with this playboy billionaire. Like, yeah. So this, yeah, great line. So this is kind of a glimpse into that, but yeah, I mean basically, like Vic touched upon, he's kind of there for a PR campaign or just to kind of show his face or put a name in there, and he's thrown into a world of a hostage situation basically where he's fighting for his life. So yeah, I mean anything.
Basically, just he spent his whole life creating weapons for whatever reason. Doesn't matter. Peace. He doesn't care about it. That would put him out of business, as it says in that first kind of couple minutes of the film. So he spends his whole life creating weapons, and then ultimately it ends up he is the ultimate weapon. He turns himself into a weapon, and that's pretty cool because he didn't foresee that coming. But that's when you get taken captive and held in a cave for who knows how long. Your only way out is basically
Fight your way out.
yeah, build yourself up to be the ultimate weapon, and that's what Iron Man became.
Yeah. Yeah, so eventually, kind of skipping ahead here, so eventually he does kind of escape, even though he flies into the dirt. And then I think Happy picks him up, played by.
No, Rhodey meets him in the desert somehow, which I kind of a crappy part of the movie. All of a sudden, there's a slight explosion in the desert. He flies out of this. He crashes in the dirt, and 2 minutes later, Rhodey's just flying over and picks him up. Like, kind of a low point of such a great movie, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Very
Like,
coincidental.
where the hell was he? 3 days ago. You couldn't
Yeah.
find him in that cave with all those weapons. Kind of weird, but
But maybe Rhodey was looking for him this whole time. And then he, days and days of finding nothing, and then maybe he finally found him.
yeah.
In the middle of the desert.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, obviously a huge explosion. He blew up the Jericho and all the other Stark missiles that Obadiah sold to him kind of under the table, but I don't know, a little crazy, a little
Couple loose ends.
yeah, but it's part of a movie.
a couple loose ends, but it's the MCU, so
Yeah, you take the bad with all the
we're
greatness.
talking about a series about
Yeah.
superheroes, so
Yeah.
it's not exactly like it's going to be. It's grounded in reality to an extent, but it's not exactly anything crazy. So yeah, we jump ahead here. He eventually escapes. Rhodey finds him. There's a great bit where he says he wants I think he says the American cheeseburger, and they go to Burger King.
Yeah.
There's like a great bit where there's like Burger King Schneider. He gets a Whopper, and he eats that. They have a press conference there.
And then he says he doesn't want to sell weapons anymore. We're no longer a weapon company, and that's when the feud between Obadiah and him really starts. And at least that's when it publicly starts, because we find out later down the road that Obadiah was setting him up the whole time, that he wanted him out. And Obadiah's frustration obviously comes back. Him and Howard Stark were business partners, or Howard's right hand man. And then next thing you know, Tony's 21 years old, taking over the company as CEO from Obadiah. So naturally, in any company, greed is the root of all evils. That that took over everything Obadiah ever wanted. He said, "I'm done with Tony." Started pushing him out, and instead of pushing him out, he tried killing him out, and that kind of backfires. But keep going with the story.
True. Yeah, so we'll skip ahead here. Again, we just watched this, but I don't know if I remember every portion there, but we don't want to recap, scene for scene. And if you're watching this, you hopefully have seen Iron Man already. If not, go watch Iron Man. But we'll just kind of touch on the big moments here. But like Vic said, Tony eventually goes from weapons manufacturer to kind of, he wants to prevent weapons, or kind of stand up for peace, or I guess kind of defend. He wants to use this technology that he created in that cave to kind of refine his suit, what we know is the Iron Man suit eventually. He's got the arc reactor in there. He's trying to kind of fine tune that. And there's a great scene that we get with Pepper Potts, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, where Tony's kind of laying up there on is it gurney, I guess?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
a chair, and he's kind of operating on himself.
Yeah.
So he's operating himself, and Gwyneth comes in, or Pepper, I should say, and Pepper comes in, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to help me out with something." And there's a great bit where he says, "Just like Operation," and who's played that game, and I think we mentioned that right before the scene started. It's like Operation, where she can't touch the sides because it's going to electrocute her. Similar to Operation, we got to be really careful when you're banging out. But she tells him basically to bring out the arc reactor. There's a great bit where there's like a long,
like a hose, or
like a hose, like a line where she takes it out there and she replaces it. And there's like a cute flirty scene with them where he's like, "I'm just going into cardiac arrest," and she's like, "Oh shit," and she puts it back in, and then he's good to go. But he's like, "Yeah, not so bad." Eventually, I don't know if I'm skipping too far ahead here, but just kind of the overall plot. Obadiah kind of wants to harness that power. He gets like a group of scientists, or
engineers.
engineers, is the more appropriate term. He gets a group of engineers that want to kind of harness that power, and he eventually goes to Tony's apartment and uses like a high, I don't know what the word is.
Like a high frequency type
High
thing.
frequency
Yeah, I don't know what the hell it
type,
is.
like really loud, like high pitched sound that like will.
To paralyze them.
He says it's like short-term.
paralyzation.
Yep, short-term paralysis, where he ends up like sneaking into Tony's apartment, which Seems like he has a bunch of
Yeah, a
high-tech
lot of security. But
but not for Obadiah Stane, who just walks right in and just like roofies him basically. And he puts him to sleep basically, and he just takes the arc reactor out of his chest. He uses that arc reactor for the body, the suit of armor that his engineers have built there, and that's kind of a bigger, hulkier version.
we kind of skipped ahead a little bit because, just before that, Pepper, who, when you look at that role, you're like, okay, if she's just an assistant or a secretary or whatever, you don't bring someone in like Gwyneth Paltrow, right? So naturally, if you're a movie snob and you're watching this first movie of this huge, massive collection of movies, you're like, okay, she's going to play a bigger role, which, keep watching, she plays a bigger role, but she gives him a gift. What was it for? I can't remember if the gift related to anything or maybe it was just random.
They replace the arc reactor, and he gets like a better version of the arc reactor, and she takes the original. That scene where she takes it out, that's the original arc reactor, and she puts that in a case, and you can buy that like on Amazon now. But it's I'm glad you brought that up.
Proof that Tony Stark has a heart.
Proof that Tony Stark has a heart. Yeah, that's a cute moment. And she puts that in like a display case, and then as we'll see in just a bit there, that's actually where ends up saving his life down the road.
Yeah, he crawls his ass downstairs.
He has to go back to that original arc reactor and put it in once Obadiah takes. Actually, it's right after the scene we were just talking about where Obadiah takes the arc reactor. Tony's paralyzed, and he crawls, and the only thing left is the other arc reactor, the original one that he got. And
that's the one he made in the cave too, right?
That's the one he made in the cave. Yeah, and I think it's kind of worn out, and it's kind of like used up, and it's not as efficient. So that's why he has I keep saying Gwyneth, Pepper take it out. Because that's the only thing after Obadiah takes it, that's the only thing that he has left. So he has to crawl back to that, and we get that scene there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also skipped over a pretty big scene too with Pepper when Tony Stark actually shows up to the function or the ball or whatever that is, and he actually is just kind of there to piss people off who didn't think he'd be there. So he shows up, and then not only on top of showing up, he asks Pepper to dance, and she's kind of taken back by that. I think at this point she doesn't know what to expect from him, working for him, and obviously there's some interest there, but she's still an employee, and then he asks her to dance, and then it's kind of in front of everybody showing like, hey, maybe, he's sleeping with the help, for lack of a better phrase.
And it's funny because you talk about Tony Stark as a superhero, but humanize him a little bit. That moment kind of shows it like some humility, where he went from playboy, philanthropist, all that, to more of like, do I have feelings for somebody? Like, I don't want to, incite war anymore. I don't want to be a playboy. Am I falling in love with my secretary? It's kind of weird. Like, you watch this transition kind of quickly over this movie.
This is the first time we really see he's vulnerable.
Yeah.
He realizes there's someone in his life who knows him better than himself, and I think that's a big.
What's your social security number?
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't know
his social security number, and he
5.
doesn't.
Five.
So
missing a few digits.
He's like, shit, I kind of need this girl around.
Yeah, that speaks to Pepper's importance too, of just not only does she do like the bookkeeping that we see, but I mean, like we said, the social security, she says, what's your social security number? And he says 5, and then she's like, you're missing a few digits there. Again, I'm sorry, we kind of skipped over that scheme, but yeah, there's a nice party where we see kind of bits and pieces of their chemistry, and I think the chemistry in this movie is actually really good for them, opposed to some of the other movies. I think Iron Man 3 kind of focuses on that, but I have a hard time with Pepper and Tony, but I think in this movie, rewatching it, I saw more chemistry than I initially thought.
As you work through all of the movies with Tony Stark, outside of the suit, it kind of falls in line. He's a very weird, kind of typical scientific engineer type person. Like, he doesn't like things handed to him. We'll see throughout, the entire series. He never shows physical affection. His emotions, when he does show them, are just super deep. But he's very standoff. He's a typical, like, scientist, engineer kind of nerd.
He's very confident in his work.
Yeah, he's just a good-looking guy that gets a lot of women. So he kind of
some sort of social awkwardness.
Yeah, for sure.
We skipped way over the beginning, like one of the beginning scenes, but where he sleeps with the hot blonde model that comes in, the reporter that's asking questions about weapons.
Yeah.
That's when I think she brings up the death machine, or bring your death, or
Yeah. Some terrible
Death.
nickname. Yeah.
that's kind of his little fling before he
Some newspaper headline.
sees Pepper. Yeah, that's actually our introduction to Pepper. But that's when she kind of wakes up in the morning and we see Tony Stark's amazing,
Oh, it's phenomenal.
amazing scene where it's like the I don't know if it's the blinds or digital representation.
Pacific
But
Ocean.
the weather in Malibu is 72 degrees. But yeah, she kind of goes, and I think Pepper says like taking out the trash sometimes.
The little feud. She's like, "Oh, do you do everything for Mr. Stark?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do. I'll do anything for him, including taking out the trash."
Yeah. There you go.
So good.
Yeah, that's a good bit there. Sorry, that was jumping way back to the beginning, but yeah, again, I don't want to recap scene for scene this movie, but I think we're kind of leaping ahead here. Just the big moments here. In general, yeah, we see there's a lot of scenes here where we see Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane, where I didn't realize how much of I think you said it, Victor, in the movie, he's kind of a dirtbag.
Yeah.
Where like I knew he was a bad guy or a villain in this movie, but I didn't realize how dirty he is, or how much he's trying to really not only screw over Tony, but like also just like he's only interested in really like weapons and
Yeah. If you've never seen him before, you have no idea he's the bad guy until the end.
yeah.
It's hard to tell. He's like an uncle, really. Or
I think it speaks to Jeff Bridges' character too, because he's
Yeah.
such a phenomenal actor that it's like you like Jeff Bridges, so you want
You
to
have
like
to, yeah.
Obadiah. And I think he starts off kind of good, where he's like, oh, you know, he accepts the award for Tony, and he's like, oh, I'm not Tony Stark, and everyone gets a good laugh, but then he just like spirals downwards, where I didn't realize how quickly he goes down that path.
Yeah.
Yeah, at no point is he like on. You know he works for Stark Industries, but at no point are you like, oh yeah, this guy's got the best interests of Tony Stark in
No.
hands. Like you never get that vibe from him.
No.
Yeah, and Tony has that tonal shift after he kind of has his ordeal or his life death experience, where he says, "I want to stop manufacturing weapons and go to saving the world or protecting the people." And Obadiah is so opposed to that view, where he like does not want to do that at all. Or like Tony's trying to be like, we can make these for peace, and Obadiah's like, no, we need more weapons. And I think he's like pushing sales on Tony, or
Yeah. Obadiah's all about the money.
Yeah, it's all profit.
yeah, very greed, and I think we said greed is the root of all evil,
Mm-hmm.
which we brought up a couple times here, and that's kind of the moral of the story here. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time more on the plot, just the overall plot here, because I know we're probably getting a little long in the tooth already. But yeah, basically Obadiah does build his own suit, kind of a prototype suit similar to the one that Tony builds in the cave here. The arc reactor that he steals from Tony, he uses to power the suit, and then that's when we talked about Tony has to crawl to the original arc reactor. Now, like a famous scene where proof that Tony Stark has a heart, which saves his heart or saves his life.
Yeah.
So that's a good bit there from Marvel. But yeah, I mean, eventually Tony does see on the news there that this group,
Group of radical Middle
Radical
Eastern, whatever you want to call it, like ISIS type.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Rebel group.
they have their own little weaponry, and they're taking over villages or communities in the Middle East. And Tony's just had enough. He knows it's the same group that took him, the same group that Obadiah or someone. I don't think at that point he knows 100% it's Obadiah. I think he has good instincts that it's Obadiah, but he then says, you know what, screw this. He puts a suit on for the first time without really testing every little bit of it, and he just goes to war. And it's one on a dozen, and he wins very easily. But he saves, dozens of people, innocent people.
There's an awesome scene, and we kind of skipped, and we'll go back to it in a second, but we kind of skipped over the scenes where Tony's like in his garage. We said all those really nice cars, and he's testing. He's kind of getting the feel for the flying and the proton. I think he tells Jarvis like 20% or 40% or whatever, and he's like increasing the percentage each time, but he's figuring out how to fly or what works for him. And I don't know if it's this. Is it this movie where he flies through the roof, or is that like an Iron?
Oh,
He
yeah,
fell
definitely.
through the roof in this one, and then he flies through
Flies
it later.
through it later, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also in the scene that you get the great line that like, oh, I can fly. Like,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
And he walks away all cocky, like I figured it out after he develops his like
Even after his
glorified
failure.
Yeah.
snowboarding boots that have rockets in them.
Yeah. So eventually, that's kind of the middle of the movie where he kind of is working on perfecting that skill, and as we find out, he's much better at perfecting that suit than Obadiah is. There is a great scene that's going to lead to the end of the movie where he goes up towards the moon, where he's going up in the altitude there, and he starts freezing, or suit starts freezing, where Tony actually loses power. And this is kind of a huge moment because he realizes, I don't know how he figures this out, but I think just from trial and error, he realizes my suit, if I get too high in the altitude, my suit freezes, so he loses power, gets emergency power back, and there's like a great bit where he zooms in through the street, and then I guess he just perfects that and learns from that.
Yeah. And he gets that excitement. He gives us like a good like woo, like as he like comes across the street saving his own ass.
Yep.
Scrapes the street and just comes up.
Yeah, that's a cool scene.
But yeah, I mean, they don't show it, but he does find a way to correct that problem and create like some sort of de-icing agent that.
And he knew Obadiah wouldn't later on.
Yep. So that was a little bit of foreshadowing there on the film.
Yeah, that'll end up being a big scene at the end there. But yeah, basically Obadiah's got the prototype suit, or the suit that we saw in the caves there, so it's kind of a bigger, bulkier suit, and he says it's improved. But he eventually, I think we're skipping to the end here. Is there anything that you guys want to touch on before we kind of jump to the last fight scene?
No, I mean, we skipped over the relationship with Colonel Rhodes a little bit, and I mean how in depth that relationship is. It's a little different in the first one compared to later down the road.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as close now. Like they have a weird like business partnership where they understand each other, but they're not like friends. As you know, as we keep watching these, you see how close they are. But in this, I love the scene when he's coming back from the Middle East after kicking all those dudes' asses, and he like Colonel Rhodes doesn't even know what to do. Like he knows it's Tony, but he's like, Tony, what are you doing up there?
Yeah,
and it's like so low key. Like he's in a t-shirt in a military base, being like just hold on, guys, just hold on. He's like watching his friend get shot out of the sky, like. Kind of a weird scene, but so good.
That's a cool scene where they have the two fighter jets go after Tony, and they said we got an unidentified bogey, and he's like, "Yo, it's me, it's me." And
like, what do you mean it's you?
Yeah, he says like, "I'm driving with the top down," and then he's like, "Oh, why are you out of breath?" He's like, "I'm jogging." He's like, "I thought you were driving with the top down." It's like, yeah, Tony's caught in a lie here, but it's cool because there's a cool scene that we didn't touch on where he takes out like one of the wings of the fighter jets, and some dude he ejects. And his parachute's not going to go, so Tony actually has to go, like, kind of save him, and he dives down and punches his chute to go out there.
Which is kind of like a great scene, I guess, for like the United States side, because it shows that this brand new weapon, whether they know it's a robot or actually human piloted, it shows that he's a U.S. ally. Like he's not trying to kill U.S. or whatever. Like it just shows that he's on their side. But I think they still attack after that.
Well, they don't know. I think Rhodey knows because Tony's kind of playing it like he's kind of playing a cat and mouse game where he doesn't. He's like, "Yo, it's me," but he kind of messes with the planes.
Yeah.
And then I don't think it's until like they're gonna shoot him or like the second plane where he says like it's me. He calls him back and he's like, "It's me, it's me."
He
like,
kind of latches on to the underside of the plane.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know if it's power or...
seems a little desperate, and then calls
under your belly or something.
Like, "Hey, it's me. I'm in the suit. I am the weapon." And that's when he kind of tries to tell him to like call off the dogs.
Yeah.
And but at that point, it's kind of too late. He flies off the plane, and that's when he smashes the window. And
what do they use for the news like headline? What do they call it? I guess something test or whatever.
Oh yeah, and then they just call it a field test or something like that.
Yeah, like a field test.
Field test gone wrong. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, that's a good bit there, but yeah, I'm glad we touched on that. Rhodey's relationship with Tony, I think, is really good in this movie. As we'll see, like this is the only movie Terrence Howard is in, which is a shame because I think we collectively agree like he kills it in this movie, and Don Cheadle replaces him.
Yeah,
and Don Cheadle's a great actor, but
nothing against Don Cheadle.
Nothing against Don Cheadle, but like personally, at least for me speaking, having watched the other movies, I just don't think he brings the same energy and the same level. It's a different character. He's very serious as opposed to Terrence Howard's kind of. He's still serious, but he's playful, Tony.
Yeah,
and
I wonder if that's more of like the directing, and I don't want to go too in depth on that, but is it more of the directing or is it the acting? Because if you watch like Terrence Howard in this one, he's kind of laid back and like he jokes around a little bit with Tony, and they have like a weird little rapport. But Don Cheadle later on, I guess Don Cheadle jokes around. Don Cheadle, you're right. Don Cheadle's just a serious dude because he jokes around a little.
They try and capture that magic
later on.
I think they try and capture that magic with Don Cheadle, but like at least for me, and maybe this will change when we're rewatching. But like I just never felt like the connection, and it's not even like the actor change. Maybe it's because the acting style was so different between like Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle, but like I just felt like the like watching this movie again. Like it seems like they really had a good connection. They felt like good buddies or good friends. And then like Don Cheadle, I feel like it's it's Iron Man 2. We'll see in a bit where like he walks into like the courtroom, I think, and he says like, "It's me. I'm here. Get used to it." And it's like it's just Don Cheadle where it's like he's basically saying like, "I'm the actor playing this character now."
Yeah.
And it's like I just feel like they have their moments, but I feel like they never really like connect like Terrence Howard and Tony do in this one.
It'd be interesting to see what Terrence Howard would have done with the role had he been in all three films and throughout the Avengers and all that. Would it have changed anything? Would it have added more excitement? I mean, he definitely brings a different type of charisma. So it's really one of those interesting roles where it hasn't happened a lot in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where an actor just kind of bows out of a role.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what happened here, and I mean, it happened with Incredible Hulk, which we'll touch on next, but one actor just is like, I don't want to do it anymore, and they leave, and that's fine. But this one, I think, kind of hurt the universe.
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, if you think about the future movies, this movie, besides the main character, takes two characters throughout the whole series between Pepper and
Tony.
Pepper, Tony, and Rhodes. So Rhodey is in almost every Avengers movie. He becomes the Iron Patriot. I mean, just talking future. And Pepper, obviously that relationship becomes more in depth. But I mean, obviously we don't want to flash forward too much, but there's not many people from Captain America or Thor that last the entire series. Mm-hmm. But those are two main characters that make it through the whole thing. Yeah. Kind of impressive.
Not to go forward too much, but I hate to say it, but we'll never have another chance to talk about Terrence Howard and what he would have done had he kept the role. So this is kind of where you gotta say
you gotta emphasize it. Absolutely.
Iron Patriot would have been totally different had he just been like, you know what, I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep playing Rhodey.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. It's tough because I think Terrence Howard is such a good actor where it's like, I mean, personally, and again, I'm glad you brought that up, Garrett, because Incredible Hulk, which we'll be doing next, that is, as anyone who's seen the MCU before, that's the Hulk movie the only Hulk movie that doesn't have Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, so it's got Edward Norton, and that is the canon Hulk movie. So it's weird because similar to this movie, where Terrence Howard only played that one role in Iron Man, Edward Norton is that's the only time he shows up as the Hulk, and then our Hulk is replaced, and then Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk throughout the rest of the MCU. So to be fair though, in Terrence Howard's, I mean he's probably kicking himself turning down a role now after seeing how the MCU blew up. But to be fair, in 2008 when this movie premiered, nobody knew that this would blow up. So for all we know, this could have been Iron Man was good at the box office, but that was it, and it was a nice movie, but nothing else happened. I mean, obviously no one saw what would come. I mean, other than maybe Kevin Feige, who the Marvel mastermind.
But that's your point though, because Terrence Howard, he's good in everything he's in, but besides Empire, which, I don't know, probably had 5 or 6 seasons, and it was a pretty big, hit across all, platforms. I don't know if any movie even comes close to what he could have achieved with this. That's why it's a little weird to me. I like to refer back to Entourage, and I could have watched Vinny Chase, 10 more seasons, but he said he didn't want to get typecast, and that has to be
Aquaman.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Terrence Howard, probably was thinking. I don't want to be known as Iron Patriot or whatever the future was at that time in 2008 for him. That's what's crazy to me.
Yeah.
He could be massive now.
What's interesting too is with your point, Vic. Typecasting is like it's so crazy because it can go one of two ways. Where like let's say like Daniel Radcliffe who plays Harry Potter, like he's
He'll
always
never get another
he was
movie.
always gonna be known as Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Like no matter what he did, like Woman in Black, I think was the movie. Like
Now you see me
He's just
too.
he's Harry
Nobody-
Potter and that's
he's
it.
just Harry
And
Potter
you
in
said-
that movie.
And you said Vinny Chase, Adrian
Grenier, whatever,
Grenier,
yeah.
whatever his name is.
He's always.
I hate to
Chase.
say it, but he is now typecast. Like
Yeah,
he got out, but he's like you're just Vinny Chase. You can't
Has he
play
been in
another
anything
role.
since?
You see E, and E is just E. Like that's
Yeah,
who he is.
exactly,
Like, they
yeah.
can't play another role.
Like Tom Brady is a Patriot.
Shout out
Sorry,
Tom
sorry.
Brady.
Change the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do Entourage a review at some point. I don't know.
Wow.
Oh,
Talk dirty.
Throwing,
Yeah.
dropping a bomb.
but it's one of those things where I didn't want to be typecast. Like Chris Evans is Captain America now. Like,
Forever.
Tony Stark is Iron Man. It's when you commit to a role like that, you really have to commit. And guess
See,
Chris
you just
didn't
said
want
Tony
it.
Stark is Iron Man. You didn't even say Robert Downey,
No.
but you're right.
But
Yeah,
it's like
it's
that's
like
how it is.
that's
That's how it
Yeah.
is. That's how my brain thinks.
Yeah,
It's like
it-
Tony Stark's
they're one
Iron
and the
Man.
same.
Which
Robert Downey Jr. It's like I don't even think back to when he was like in the
Sherlock
earlier
Holmes.
career when he was just on crack and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's like he doesn't even have another role like Sherlock Holmes. You mentioned that like decent films,
Good
but
movie, but
no one
didn't take
remembers that. They don't remember that part of Robert Downey Jr.
right.
The only other Robert Downey Jr. I remember is Tropic Thunder. Like, but
Jesus.
that's a total, and
Just
that's
a
for
dude
a
playing a
totally
dude
different
disguised as
reason,
another
which
dude.
we're not even going to touch on.
But you're right though. I mean, I noticed. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Evans and Hemsworth, right? That Thor,
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth. They both have movies on Netflix. Like, so Endgame ends, and their next movie is a release on Netflix. You know, it's like they kind of lost who they were.
I know.
Now you look at the bigger names. I mean, Jeremy Renner was blowing up before he got into this. Scarlett Jo, you know, God bless her. I mean, she is, you know,
Don
she's
John.
She can do
yeah.
whatever she wants.
Don't-
Yeah,
Switch
she
over
can do whatever
to
she
Don John.
wants. She's unstoppable, obviously.
Yeah.
But like those guys, I mean, Chris Evans wasn't really that big going into this.
No, he was in
forever.
another teen movie, right? It was like his big movie.
Yeah.
Yes,
it
wow.
kinda was.
America's Ass, where it's like
Wow.
that meme now. Right?
Yeah, which you know he's great regardless, but and we're kind of getting
He
off base
wasn't
here,
big
but-
though. I mean,
No, he wasn't big.
Chris Evans was like a guy that some like not in a teen movie is a great movie,
Yeah.
but like people out Chris Evans cool. But yeah, Captain America, First Avenger is like the first like he blew up and he killed that role, and then like
That's who he is now. It's like
That
kids
he's-
see him in the store. It's like you're Captain America. You're not Chris
Yeah,
Evans.
exactly.
You're not the dude from your Hulu TV show. Like,
Yeah.
No, no.
it's not like that.
Mhm.
So
So I
it's a commitment.
I kind of respect where Terrence Howard was at because slightly different time frame for him and Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle's had so many impactful roles in so many different types of movies. He's been a detective. He's been a gangster. He's done everything, and he's been phenomenal at it. And I don't know if he's won awards. I'm sure he has.
he was proven.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
Terrence
been
Howard
around
was
since like the Golden Girls. Like
literally.
he's, like since the 80s.
And
he's
Cheadle was probably
established.
okay going out with something like this. You know, he's probably close to his 50s now,
Cash
if
grab,
not.
you
Exactly, you know,
good
and it's a
role,
huge
good
role.
role, pays well, take it.
Exactly, surrounded by great actors. Where Terrence Howard was like, oh wait, I still have some opportunity. Am I going to commit to this for the next, 12 years, right? I mean,
Yeah.
well, 11, I guess, was ended at 19, but still, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big commitment for
It's
the
a big
rest of your
commitment.
career, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of people get confused with Terrence Howard and Cuba Gooding Jr. too. So I think that's part of the problem here. Is like he was just probably like everyone keeps calling me Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to get away from that.
Yep. Yeah, so that was good. I think we kind of touched on the big points, but yeah, eventually we get this end scene here where it kind of calls back to the moon scene where Tony's going up there and finds out about the freezing issue, but he fights off with Obadiah Stane, and then he sends Pepper to like turn on this like electric machine or electromagnetic machine.
Well, that's the big arc reactor.
oh
right.
okay, yep, the big arc reactor.
Yeah, which kind of like gives you like that Chernobyl vibe. Like they're
Literally.
like
Great series.
like blow up the arc reactor, and like the first thing I think of is like this has got to have lasting effects
Mhm.
Yep.
on the entire
Yeah.
like Earth, not just. Like they use it to kill Obadiah, but I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, look at this massive
Like a
explosion.
nuclear bomb
this,
about
like,
to go off.
radioactive explosion that they just sent out of I don't know,
Like
like
a
a massive
facility?
EMP. Like
Yeah.
like the entire world, like country loses power. I want.
That's what it looked like it
I
was
want to
gonna be.
know. I want to know about the aftermath of that. Because it's like it killed the guy, sure, it killed Obadiah and took care of him, but I'm like, what's the aftermath of blowing up that huge reactor?
What is the cost of
Yeah,
life?
yeah.
Yeah, what
Kinda
is the
weird.
cost of a lie? But we were watching it a second ago, and the first thing I thought of was just like, I'm like, that definitely, like, it probably just, like, wiped off all wildlife in
Yeah.
the area nearby.
I didn't think about
like,
that, but yeah.
all the farms are cleared out. Like,
Definitely killed coronavirus. Coronavirus is gone from wherever that facility was.
So what we need is an EMP in today's world.
Yeah.
So we need Tony Stark to come in here, save
like
2020.
every plane in the sky must have just fell right out of the air.
Seriously.
Like, it just, I want answers.
But they got the bad guy, so.
Yeah.
Although I think the scene before is when they go up to the moon and then he freezes and you think Obadiah is done, but then does he fall to the ground and then that's when they
It
do the
doesn't
EMP?
show. Yeah, it doesn't show him falling. Tony comes down a little recklessly, lands on the roof, and boom, there's Obadiah waiting for him.
Yeah, so I think Obadiah took damage from that, but he recovers from the freeze,
Yeah.
and then that's when he starts like being like, "I'm gonna take you down, Tony," and that's when Tony's hanging on, where he's about to fall to the roof, and he's like, just push the button, like. Pepper's
Tony
like,
was ready
"You told-
to
you
die
told me
for
not
it."
to," and he's like, "Yeah, Tony was ready to die for it." Foreshadowing there, but sorry.
I do want to like touch on one part of this film that I think we can kind of dig
Right.
into, where he says in this part, he's like, he starts talking to Tony. He's like, you built this suit, but I made some add-ons myself. And all I kept thinking about in that part is, I'm like, well, Tony engineered this suit. He like pioneered it, built it up from scratch, and then he perfected it, like the guy told him in the cave when he went to go pick up the blueprints. How did this guy make a suit that was, granted it was much larger and probably more durable, but it's definitely not nimble and power. Like, how did it compete with Tony Stark's suit? I didn't understand that. I felt like Tony Stark's suit should have been light years more improved than this guy's. He literally just popped in the power and then was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna get inside and I know how to pilot this."
See, I was thinking that too, but if Tony and Obadiah had the same arc reactor in both suits,
Yeah,
I think Tony's suit clearly outmatches him.
exactly.
Because he was, I mean, when he went to go up to the sky, he had 15% power. So he started with what, 25% power?
Yeah, so he.
So maybe that, because I agree,
Okay.
because Obadiah wasn't an engineer. The engineer that Obadiah almost killed was
Couldn't
like,
even
I
figure
couldn't
it
do what
out.
Tony can do. So, I mean, there's no way they had the advanced technology. It has to be the power, right? I
It
mean,
has to be Tony using his suit at 20% and less.
I think it speaks to Tony's genius too, where it's like I think what this scene kind of speaks to is that, or going back to that famous scene where Jeff Bridges' character yells, Tony Stark built us in a cave with scraps, and I think that what that means is that they have an engineering team, but Tony Stark is so
still
smart.
not as brilliant.
He's so smart and he's so like brilliant that he can build that shit in a cave with half the materials that a whole engineering team can do. So I think that speaks to kind of what you're saying. Why was Obadiah's suit not as good? I think it's because Tony is just that much smarter than everyone
Yeah.
else, and he's just that much better, and so that's why he can build a suit and he can trim it down and make it so it's more agile. But like Obadiah's dealing with like, this is the best that like my engineer team can do. Where Tony's like, I can slim this down, I can make this go faster, I can fix the freezing problem. Like, I think that Tony is just that much ahead of the game, that he figures it out before the smartest engineers that Obadiah can find.
Well, that's what I was saying. What I was originally saying was basically just Obadiah's suit, like when they were in the physical fight, and it must have been the 20% power, because I felt like Tony's suit should just totally overpower that
Right.
kind of. I mean, if you look at it from just like an engineering standpoint, like Obadiah's suit had hydraulics on the back. The hydraulics do not work that fast. Like, if he's gonna throw a punch and that thing has to compress, like that's just kind of primitive technology to Tony's suit. But that's where we found out that it ended up just getting blown up by an arc reactor.
Yeah. Quick little recap, shout out, I guess. Because we
Shout out.
joked about it as soon as the the hell are they called when the things came on at the end. The credits, yeah. Thank you, Jesus. As the credits came out,
The end of every movie.
I know, right?
Those words.
The credits came out on the screen. And the first thing says, directed by Jon Favreau.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, we know Jon Favreau has directed many movies. He's phenomenal. He's just as good of a director as he is an actor.
Plays a big part in the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, Happy. What a great fucking name, first of all. Second of all, he's directing this movie while playing such a great role. That's another one that, when, as I was just saying, Rhodes and Pepper, Happy plays in all of them as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, he's in most of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
He's money, baby.
Yeah. Whoa, is that
Little swingers. Little swingers
Oh,
reference
man.
there.
You just watched that, didn't you?
I did. Just
Oh,
watched
so
that for the
good.
first time as a 20-year-old
What?
man. So
Wow.
Yeah,
Swingers
but-
good.
I remember that reference to that is funny.
Vince Vaughn.
Yep,
So
Vince
good.
Vaughn.
Classic.
Yeah, so they have the big fight. Eventually, Tony wins by Pepper setting off the EMP that destroys all fucking life in the universe, basically. And then the end, we get a press conference at the end. I don't think there's any big moments between that fight and the end segment.
No, I mean Agent Coulson, who obviously plays a role.
He does
He
show up.
kind of gives him the index card saying, here's what I want you to say.
Right.
What's he say? You're on the yacht with a few models or whatever, something like that. Here's your cover up. And Obadiah's on a plane to go to a meeting or something like that. And Tony gets up there. He starts getting off track a little bit. And Rhodey's like, just stick to the cards. And he's like, I was going to stick to the cards, but I'm Iron Man. And he just drops the bomb on everybody.
Yep, I am Iron Man, and just
Boom.
and then the crowd freaks out, and then we get into credits, and it's just a great ending.
One of the best developments of a character.
Especially,
in any movie.
of course, what we'll see without avoiding too many future spoilers, from this movie to Endgame. Just great, full circle.
I think what's great about that ending scene too is that he reads the newspaper and he's like, "Oh, Iron Man," and he's like, "Well, it's not made out of iron; it's made out of this."
Yeah.
And he goes, "But that's got a great ring to it." And he's like the first person that's because he's been so arrogant his entire life that he just loves the spotlight, and he just realizes I can have an even bigger spotlight as a superhero.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he's the only superhero that's I don't care if people know my true identity. I want that fame. And he went out there and he basically just hijacked the interview and he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna tell the world that I'm Iron Man because I want them to know that I did this and I'm the one responsible
Yeah.
for this. Whereas everyone else will wear the mask or hide or they don't want that kind of spotlight, and he's the complete opposite.
Yeah,
He's like I want all that.
Exactly. If you comp to DC, which we don't want to go down there, but like Batman, Superman, they try to hide their identity the whole time. Iron Man, literally one movie into it, which seems like if you watch the movie, it's over a few weeks, if not less. Really, it feels that way, right? I mean, maybe a little longer, but
36 hours, right?
yeah. And then from
flashback.
development of the new suit,
But then, I don't know if there's
Probably about a week.
it feels pretty quick.
Probably about a
Of
week.
course
yeah.
it's
And he's ready to own that spotlight.
He's like,
own
I am
that-
Iron Man, dude. He's like, come at me.
exactly. That's badass.
It's like, yo, I'm fucking Iron Man.
Yeah.
Come at me.
He's like, yeah, who wants me?
Yeah. Come get it.
He has a rough going the
There's a
rest of the way
great-
through, but
Actually, I know I said no future spoilers, but I think Iron Man 3 is when he's like, yo, this is my address. Come at me.
literally.
And then that's when, of course, things happen. But yeah, so that's pretty much Iron Man 1. So I think we'll just do kind of our outstanding actor, I guess, or
Like an unsung.
unsung hero, who you guys thought as kind of the best actor or actress that stuck out in this movie for Iron Man 1. This is kind of the kickoff of the MCU. I'll just go first here, and we'll probably agree on this, but I think Terrence Howard. It's an easy pick to say Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, but I think Terrence Howard in this movie as Colonel Rhodes just really adds an element that we don't. I don't want to say we don't see with Don Cheadle, but it's just a different element where it's really too bad, as we talked about earlier, that we couldn't have seen Terrence Howard through these movies, because I think it could have added a really nice element and a fun kind of like a buddy cop almost sort of segment to him and Tony. But I think I think Terrence stands out the most in this movie. It's really Tony, Pepper, Terrence Howard as Colonel Rhodey are kind of the main characters. I don't know if we really have any other main
The
characters.
girl
in
from
this
the
movie.
press has a couple little blurbs.
Yeah,
I mean,
she's quick.
Jeff Bridges, obviously.
Jeff
but-
Bridges, of course, is Obadiah. So it's really, those are really the four main characters. And I just think Terrence Howard sticks out the most out of these guys. The acting is good across the board, really. If I had to pick a weak link, I would probably say Pepper Potts. But that doesn't mean Gwyneth Paltrow does a bad job. She just, between Robert Downey Jr., Jeff Bridges, Terrence Howard, and her, I think she's the weakest of those. But so those are kind of my, I guess my strongest is Terrence Howard. My weakest is probably Pepper Potts.
Okay.
I'm gonna go devil's advocate because I feel like we were all gonna go Terrence Howard.
Probably.
This is gonna like sound bad because I don't know his name for this review, but actually the scientist or the dude that was trapped in the cave with Tony Stark that
Oh, the
Great,
doctor?
great role.
saved,
Absolutely.
the doctor who saved his life.
Yeah, we
I
did
think
look at this
he's
name.
an underappreciated role there because he's only in the film for maybe less than 15 minutes. And for those 15 minutes, you go from hating him, thinking he's the enemy, when Tony first wakes up and he's like, hey, basically, the only thing keeping your heart from getting hit with shrapnel is this, device that I put in you, and it's attached to a car battery, so you better listen to what I say. You learn that you actually kind of have some attachment to him by the end of it, which is only about 15 minutes later in the film.
Sean Taub.
Sean Taub.
Yep, American-Iranian actor. And he's phenomenal. I mean,
He
that's
does
a
a great
great...
job,
Yeah.
and I think he no one will talk about him, so that's why I'm going to bring him up. And I think
a good
really you kind of get a connection to him really quickly, and then he gets taken away really quickly. But if it wasn't for him, there's no Tony Stark, there's no Iron Man, there's no nothing like
It
this
saves
guy
his life.
Saves his life,
Yeah.
and he's in the same position as Tony at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Tony doesn't know it, but he's being held captive there. By this terrorist group to do their bidding, whether it's keep Tony alive or build a weapon, whatever they need him to do, that's what he's there for. So
And that the one part that we all laughed at the beginning, he's translated for them. He's like, yeah, and he says if you build a weapon, he'll keep you, he'll let you live. And so he goes,
Yeah.
no, he won't. And the guy goes,
No.
no, he won't. Like that.
they
You're
both,
right.
they
That's
both
a
know
great
they're
role.
all gonna die. But
Yeah,
it's like
yeah, he's a really good
like
actor.
he goes underlooked because it's so early on in the film, but
Mm.
plays kind of a key role, and you do develop some sort of an attachment to him until he disappears.
Yeah.
And if we remember correctly, he is the one when that one dude is kind of looking at the camera and noticing like, I don't know if Tony's building our weapons. He's the one who actually sticks up for Tony and says like, no, we're building it. Like, don't worry. And,
Yeah.
and they're like, I don't think you are. And he's like, dude,
But
We're
that
good.
might be the first time Tony shows a little selflessness because Tony says, I need him. Remember when
It's
the
true. He does say,
ISIS
"Can't
type
do
guy
without
says
him."
he's going to kill him, he says, I can't do it without
I
him.
think he
And
knows
lives.
like, hey, this guy did save my life.
Yep.
And,
He owes him.
I owe you one.
Yeah. So
Wow.
now that you say that in that point, I don't think that Tony needs him necessarily, but because he does feel like he owes a debt to him, he saved
He
his
talks
life.
about his family too, so I mean,
Yeah, so I think Tony could have easily done it without him, but because he sees this guy's life as a danger and that he did save his life, I think he sticks up for the doctor there and says, yeah, like you said, Tony, I need him, and they spare his life there. So
yeah.
so that's a good point. I think that's a really underrated actor in this film.
Weak link, I think Pepper Potts. I think you're right. No offense to Gwyneth Paltrow, I think she was just kind of settling into a role, and there weren't a lot of roles in this film that had more than one scene. So her having a couple, I think it was probably the weakest of people who had bigger roles.
In the beginning, we're all Terrence Howard, but I'm gonna go with Obadiah. I mean,
Yeah.
if you really look at all these movies, he plays such a great villain because it kind of comes out of nowhere. If you've never seen it before, it hits you at the very end. We keep complimenting his acting. I mean, it really was phenomenal. He comes off as like kind of an arrogant, good-looking, older businessman, but low-key, he's a greedy bastard that will do anything to make a buck, and he loves the spotlight. He wants to steal it from Tony. It's very low-key, but it's very powerful from every aspect. I mean, the money side, to the power side, to the fame side. I mean, he kind of takes over a little bit in some scenes. it's actually really impressive looking back at it, because you watch the 3 Iron Man specifically, and you grade those, which we'll have to do now, you know, grading the bad guys,
Gotcha.
and then you grade all the bad guys later down the road. I mean, he's pretty good. He's kind of impressive to me.
He holds up.
Yeah, I mean, great acting and a great character overall. You know, I don't want to go with the crowd, but yeah, I mean, this specific movie for Pepper wasn't great. I mean, if you, like I said earlier, Gwyneth Paltrow, you know, is going to have some sort of significant role, whether it's throughout the whole trilogy or the whole Marvel series or whatever you call it. She's going to have a significant role, but this one wasn't great for her. She was kind of weak, but if you really break down, you know, obviously we can't look into the past. Maybe she really was just the quiet secretary that did everything. In this movie, because of that traumatic experience, she had to jump and be a new person. You get what I'm saying? Like, because she was just the secretary before this traumatic experience, and now Tony's kind of slowly falling in love with her. Tony's dying and going to war with people, and now she's not just a assistant or a secretary or whatever the hell she was. She's now like his sidekick almost, in a sense, and she kind of does become the sidekick later on. But so yes, in this movie, there's a very weak character, but I think it's going to develop, obviously, as we know. But
Yeah, I think we agree with Gwyneth Paltrow. She's just like, it's not that she did a bad job acting in this movie. She's just the weakest, I think, of the other 3 main stars.
yeah,
Between
I think it's more of
Terrence
a
and
role
Gwen- and
character
Obadiah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we all kind of agree on that. So what would you guys give this on a score out of 10? I'm not going first.
Yeah, what do you
so-
got?
I guess I'll start. We'll go left to right or wherever it is on the camera. Out of 10, this one's tough because this one, you know, I think for a lot of people, this one is kind of starts it off and kind of starts it off with a really realistic storyline that's not too cheesy in some aspects. I'm gonna go with like an 8.3. I think it's a really, really solid film that holds up. I think it's got a good amount of action. I think it does a good job with the backstory. I think the casting, for the most part, is on point, and everyone does what they need to do. No one's really a weak link. It's just, you know, we had to pick someone to rag on, and poor Pepper Potts had to be it. And but yeah, yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. I'd say mid 8s is a fair score for this film.
Yeah, I would say for me, I'm going to go a little bit higher, just 8.4, kind of for the points that Garrett touched on there. I think this is actually really strong casting between the one, I guess this isn't spoilers, the one-time villain for Jeff Bridges, the one-time casting for Terrence Howard, I think are strong points of the MCU, but it's just lacking that overall bigger picture thing. So this is more of a self-contained story, but yeah, I think everyone in this role does well, and I really enjoy. I think we all kind of really enjoyed watching this movie again, and even as we said, a 12-year-old movie holds up pretty well. So I know I enjoyed watching this one again. So I think for kind of all the reasons Garrett mentioned, the characters, the story, kind of the overall package there, it's 8.4.
Yeah, for me, you know, looking at it right now, you know, 2020, 12 years later, I was convinced it had to have an 8 in front of it, right? But we can't rookie score, we can't do 8 even. And then I thought about, this movie came out in 2008. I'm like, you compare to action movies in 2008, and of course technology was pretty good then, and film and everything. It was good then. But this, I mean, this is top of the line. If you really compare it to 2008 action movies, and not really sci-fi, but a little sci-fi to it too, with the technology that Tony develops. I mean, this is an 8.5 to me. 8.5, I mean, it's rock solid. I actually was leaning a little lower, 8.1, 8.2, and then you remind me of the 2008. I mean, this is 12 years old. This thing is rock solid. You know, maybe it's a lower 8, maybe even a high 7 if it's 2020, but 2008, baby, 8.5. I gotta give it to him. It was good.
It's important to bring up the time that it was made and see what was around it. So yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think that's it. Any finishing thoughts that you guys want to close on?
No,
or-
I mean for me, I'm excited to watch the whole thing through,
Except for Hulk.
except for Hulk.
I'm
Maybe
ready
we'll
to
skip
rag
it.
on Hulk.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good
So-
review.
Hulk will be fun,
Tune
because
in to the Hulk review. We're gonna shit all
probably going
It's
to
gonna
be
be
the
great.
biggest video.
Yeah. I mean, as we watch this, it's gonna be great to see where Iron Man 1 kind of drops in the
Who stacks
rankings of
up.
all of them. Yeah, I mean, it's a great movie, but we have a lot of great movies ahead of us too. So
We do.
it's gonna be intriguing.
23, I think, total.
Jesus Christ.
Um,
So Kyle just booked me for the next 6 months, I guess.
yeah, so obviously we'll do a rankings going forward, but because this is the first one, Iron Man by default is at number 1 there.
Yep.
And then next week or whenever we get to review the Hulk there, we will do a ranking there, and we'll see if the Hulk can overtake Iron Man. Probably pretty unlikely, but we'll see.
We'll give it a fair
We'll
shake.
try and be objective as possible with the next movie there. But yeah, we'll go through all the MCU movies, and it should be a blast. So I know we're pretty excited to watch those movies again. They're pretty, for the most part, very, very good films. So. Yep, until next time. Peace.
Peace.